What's growing on, gardeners? Starting your own transplants is one of the best ways to maximize your garden's productivity and save yourself a ton of money on buying plants. And on today's video, I'm going to show you how to start your own transplants so you have the most productive garden ever.
If you're new to the channel, please subscribe, hit the bell for notifications, and check out my Amazon store and Spreadshop links in the video description for everything I use in my garden and awesome custom apparel and gear.
Starting your own transplants indoors has huge benefits because it allows you to get a big jump start on the growing season. For example, if you wait until spring conditions outdoors are appropriate for direct sowing cool crops like broccoli or cabbage, by the time they are nearing maturity, chances are it's going to be too hot outside and they will bolt, go to seed. For your warm season crops like tomatoes, if you wait until frosts and freezes stop to direct sow them out in your garden, by the time they finally germinate, grow, and flower, it will probably be too hot and humid in the south for good fruit set, and for northern growers, you literally risk running out of warm weather in order for them to form fruits and ripen. Either way, you will suffer huge crop losses. Starting seeds indoors allows you to transplant large, well-established plants into your garden weeks or months ahead of schedule, giving you a huge jump start. This will increase your window of productivity dramatically, leading to earlier, larger harvests. In addition, direct sowing often leads to lower germination rates because of inconsistent planting depth, fluctuating soil temperatures, and heavy rain washing away seeds. Starting seeds in a controlled environment maximizes germination rates, so you use your seed more efficiently. So, which crops should you start from transplant? It's more like which crops you shouldn't grow from transplant. Root crops like carrots, beets, turnips, radishes, parsnips, rutabagas, and the like should only be direct sown. Root crops do not like having their taproot disturbed. And crops with large seeds like peas, beans, and chard do really well being direct sown. Crops that are grown from tubers or bulbs like garlic, onion sets, and potatoes should obviously only be direct sown. Also, fast-growing row crops that mature in a matter of weeks that grow in very high density like leaf lettuces, arugula, spinach, and microgreens should be direct sown in shallow trenches. Transplants that you want to start indoors are those that are very temperature sensitive, have long days to maturity, or need generous crop spacing. Brassicas like broccoli, cabbage, kale, collards, and Brussels sprouts, etc. Nightshades like tomatoes, peppers, tomatillos, and eggplant. Cucurbits like cucumbers, squash, and melons, large-headed lettuces like your romaine types, and crops with tiny seeds like seed-grown onions, shallots, and leeks. These crops should be started indoors and transplanted when the weather is right. Now I'm going to show you how to do that. Step 1 is to choose your seed starting mix, and you basically have 3 options. You can go out and you can buy a ready-made seed starting mix, such as this one right here. You can make your own seed starting mix. I'll place links down in the video description that will show you how to make small amounts of seed starting mix and bulk amounts of seed starting mix in a DIY fashion. Or you could choose to plant your seeds in 100% vermiculite. Why do I have a bag this big? Well, because a bag this big is only about $50, but a bag of vermiculite that's about this size is about $20. So it is incredibly cheaper to buy in bulk. No matter what your choices are, I will place links to the products down in the video description. Now, in most cases, you're probably just going to want to use a standard seed starting mix, either pre-packaged or if you want to make your own, you can save a little bit of money on bulk quantities. The reason why we would do something like 100% vermiculite is because we may have a problem called damping off disease, which is a fungal disease that often happens in indoor environments that are damp and somewhat cool at room temperature. Now, my plants rarely suffer from damping off disease because I try not to overwater them, and if you have a tendency to overwater, you have a much higher chance of developing damping off disease. But there is an exception. When I grow onions and shallots from seed, for whatever reason, I tend to have damping off problems. If I start them in basic seed starting mix that is based in peat moss or coco coir, I tend to lose a lot of them to damping off. But if I grow them in 100% vermiculite, they never have the issue. I don't want to say that 100% vermiculite is impervious to damping off disease, but it has massive antimicrobial properties, and it does, for the most part, stop the issue. So if you have a problem with damping off, I do recommend you try growing some things in 100% vermiculite as a trial. I've never had damping off in this medium. So most of my seedlings, I'm just going to use a basic seed starting mix. For the onions and shallots, I'm going to use 100% vermiculite, and I will show you how to do those things shortly. I'm going to start with the 100% vermiculite mix first. I'm simply going to take a cup and dip it into the bag of vermiculite, and I'm going to fill the cells about 80% of the way because I want to leave a little bit of room at the top, so when I place my seeds, there's a little bit of room that I could bury them. And I'm going to do this inside one of these plastic storage bins so I don't lose any of the excess vermiculite because this is quite expensive. Then for the standard 6-cell seed trays that I'm going to start things like hot peppers, brassicas, and lettuce in, I'm going to use the standard seed starting mix for them. If your soil-based potting mix is very dry, it may be hydrophobic, which means it won't readily accept water, and you will need to pre-moisten the mix before you sow the seeds. Mix is much more likely to absorb hot water than cold water if it is hydrophobic. So I recommend you turn your tap to the hottest water possible, and then once it is at maximum heat, you lightly rain the water over the mix and let it absorb. If your tap water does not get hot enough to do this, another thing you can do is you can bring a large pot of water to a simmer on your stove and then dump it in a watering can, cool it down with a little bit of cool water, and then rain that on top of your mix. Pure vermiculite accepts water very easily, but we still want to pre-moisten it because it will be much less dusty and it will be a lot easier to work with. So we want to pre-moisten all of this mix before we sow any of our seeds. After the mixes have absorbed the water, make sure you drain any excess that is collecting in the bottom of the trays. You do not want these seed cells sitting in standing water. The next thing we are going to do is sow our seeds. Now, regardless of the seeds that we are sowing, we are going to engage in a practice called overseeding. Overseeding is the placement of more than one seed per seed cell. And the reason why we will do this is because seeds do not have 100% germination rates. If you only plant one seed per individual seed cell, you are going to have many where nothing germinates, and then you will have blanks. You don't want that to happen. Now, my general rule is this. When dealing with very, very small and expensive seeds like onions, these are very, very tiny. We are going to sow at least 3 to 4 seeds per seed cell because they are cheap, plentiful, and we want to make sure that something germinates. The same can also be said for things like broccoli, cauliflower, kale. The seeds are small and cheap, so you can put at least 3 per seed cell. Same thing with lettuces and inexpensive seeds like that. Now, when it comes to your more expensive seeds like tomatoes, peppers, cucumbers, you are only going to want to put something like 2 seeds per cell, and that's because they cost more. Now, open pollinated seeds like this hot pepper right here, they usually give you a lot more because they are not patented, so we can do 2 seeds per seed cell. If you're growing really, really expensive F1 hybrid seed that is close to $1 a seed, if that was the case, I would put 1 per seed cell and then overseed every other one. That way we'll have some doubles that will pop up, and then you can separate the seeds later. And if you're wondering why I am starting hot peppers this early, today is only December 29th. Well, I've learned that some of my super tropical, super hot peppers take 1 to 2 months longer to get going than the sweet peppers or your normal hot peppers like a jalapeno. So I am starting mostly winter crops and super hot peppers. And we are going to start off with onions in this seed tray right here in 100% vermiculite. Now, when doing this, I recommend 2 tools. A tape dispenser and a chopstick. Chopsticks makes this process really easy because you can take it and you can just slide it underneath, and then that will open your seed packets. And it will also help you do things like place seeds and fluff up your seed cells. Now, I did leave a little bit of room at the top of all of these seed cells because we need to cover these seeds with anywhere from 1/8 of an inch to 1/4 of an inch to make sure they germinate. But the vermiculite's a little bit hard to handle, and this is a little bit coarse. So I want to make sure that these get proper coverage. Now your onion seeds can actually be surface sown and they will still germinate. So this is why it is so important that you start your onion seeds from transplant. If you surface sow them outdoors, they will probably wash away or get blown away. Onion seeds are extremely small, like you see right here. So we want to be very conservative and we want to place at least 3 to 4 per individual seed cell. And you can see I have these already pre-labeled. This is a yellow Granex. They are the Vidalia onions that are so famous. They grow very well here. They are a short day onion that grow great in the south. So in all of these seed cells, we are going to place 3 to 4 onion seeds. Don't be cheap with them. One of the cool things about the chopstick is you can also use it as a marker where you left off if you run out of seed and you have to open another packet. So after the seeds have been sown, we will take our chopstick and we will lightly jostle all of the seeds to make sure they sink a little bit lower in the mix, and then we will top the seed trays off with a little bit of added vermiculite. Then I will do the exact same thing with the shallot seeds. Now that we have sown all of the seeds we need to sow in the pure vermiculite, let's move on to the seed potting mix that you see right here. And the first thing I'm going to start off with are my peppers, because the seeds are large and very easy to see. You can see how large they are compared to those tiny onion seeds. So the way I like to do this is I like to lightly fluff up the top of the pre-moistened mix with the chopstick on all of the seed cells that I'm going to be sowing. And now, because the tip of the chopstick is wet, that will easily grab onto the seed, just like you see right there. And then I will use that chopstick to just gently place the seed right on top of the individual cells. So these are both chocolate scorpion peppers. Because the germination rates of these super hot peppers are so incredibly low, I'm actually going to sow 3 seeds in each individual tray. Same thing with this fish pepper that I have right here. This seed is probably 3 or 4 years old at this point, so I'm going to be conservative and I'm going to place 3 seeds inside that individual cell right there. These seeds right here are from a pepper that I saved back from the island of Martinique from a vacation I took a long time ago. They're not a hot pepper, but they are a very tropical pepper. So I want to make sure I overseed that tray there very well. And since those are the only super hot peppers that I'm planting, I'm also going to start in these 2 cells right here, some parsley. And parsley has notoriously bad germination. So I'm going to sprinkle an abundance of parsley right there. Make sure to put plenty because parsley has a very low germination rate and it is pretty difficult to germinate. Then I'm going to lightly mix all that seed around. As for the larger pepper seeds, I'm going to push them down about 1/8 of an inch to try and give them a little bit of coverage. And then at the very end, I'm going to take some potting mix and I'm going to very lightly sprinkle it on top. And the total coverage is going to be about 1/4 of an inch, all said and done. Now in these 2 seed trays right here, I'm going to put romaine lettuce seed. And my favorite variety of romaine lettuce has been Giant Caesar. It is a fantastic, warm, season tolerant romaine. So I'm going to sprinkle probably about anywhere from 3 to 6 seeds on each individual seed cell, just like you see right there. This is as easy as it gets. This is how easy sowing lettuce seed is. And then we will cover the seeds with about 1/8 of an inch of fresh potting mix and then tamp them down. That is all you need to do to sow your lettuce seeds. But what about something like broccoli and cauliflower? Well, broccoli and cauliflower seeds are very tiny. You can see them right here. They're like little tiny balls. So I want to make sure that I have enough cauliflower seeds. So I need to be a little bit conservative with these. I'm going to start out by placing 2 in each seed cell, just to make sure I have enough. Now normally I would put 3, but I'm starting to run low on these seeds, unfortunately. I have far more broccoli seeds. That was a hybrid, a newer hybrid cauliflower, so they give you less seeds. So I'm going to place 3 broccoli seeds in each individual seed cell. And then I'm going to very lightly press the seeds down with the chopstick. You don't need to do this. You can just cover it with the mix, but I like doing this because I kind of like being an artist with this. And then just like before, we're going to cover everything with about 1/8 of an inch of fresh potting mix. If you did not press down the seeds like I did, you may want to cover them somewhere between 1/8 of an inch and 1/4 of an inch of potting mix, and then tamp them down at the end. And you get the idea. This is really all you have to do, so I'm going to finish planting the rest of the seed tray out. Now all the seeds have been planted, and although the mixes have been pre-moistened, we should, under normal circumstances, take a small amount of water and just lightly moisten the top so everything is evenly moistened the whole way through. Under normal circumstances, I'd get a small watering can to do this, but we are getting a nice, light, gentle rain right now, so I'm actually going to sit the trays outside in the very gentle rain for a few minutes just to get completely moistened through. Remember, don't let things get saturated and drain the trays if they get a little bit too wet. And now all of our seed trays have had little greenhouse domes placed on top of them, and I've moved them indoors to my office underneath grow lights on top of a seedling heat mat. And this is a very important process for germination because soil temperatures need to be around 75 to 80 degrees to have rapid germination for these specific crops. This is my seedling heat mat thermostat right here. You'll see the soil temperature is currently 72.5 degrees Fahrenheit. I have it set to 77 degrees. I have the probe embedded right here so I get accurate soil temperatures, and the thermostat is going to maintain that temperature. If you want to learn how to build a grow light station like this, I will link to a video both above and down in the video description that will show you how. I will also place product links down in the video description for the various things like the grow lights, the seedling heat mat, the thermostat, things like that. You will notice that I have the grow lights very, very close to the seed trays, and that is because grow lights have low intensity. They are not high intensity like the sun. They have to be placed only a few inches above the plants or else the plants will get very leggy. I also have them controlled with a timer that you see right here. It's set through an app on my phone. They turn on every morning at 6 a.m. and they turn off every evening at 10 p.m. So they run for 16 hours on, 8 hours off. Grow lights are not as intense as the sun, so you need more time under grow lights than you would under direct sunlight. As for the seedling heat mat, I let that run 24 hours straight until they germinate. Then once everything is germinated, you can turn off the seedling heat mat. Too much heat from the seedling heat mat can actually make them grow very leggy. And here we are only 4 days later. None of the onions and shallots have germinated yet. They tend to take a week, but a lot of the leafy greens and brassicas have already germinated. That is astounding for less than 4 days. These were all sown Sunday night, and here we are Wednesday morning, and already we have massive amounts of germination. So that goes to show you just how fast things will germinate if you have them in the perfect conditions. Following these instructions, you can expect most of your seeds to germinate somewhere in the 7 to 10 day time period, except for those super hot peppers. They could take up to 3 to 4 weeks. They take a very long time. That being said, once they germinate, it is actually the coating of the seed itself that will feed the seedlings for a brief period of time. After the seedlings germinate and they form their first set of true leaves, which usually happens about 10 to 14 days after germination, you will need to fertilize them for the first time. Now, when it comes to fertilizing seedlings, you must use a water-soluble fertilizer. You can't use granular organics because these little seed cells, they don't have any kind of microbiome to actually break down the fertilizers. You have to use something water-soluble. And because most of us are starting our seeds indoors, I don't recommend you use organic water-soluble fertilizers. They usually stink. Something like fish emulsion or something that contains fish and kelp will be a huge mistake, especially when you're germinating them in your office like I am. So for that reason, I recommend you use something like a Jack's All-Purpose 20-20-20 or a Miracle-Gro tomato. Whatever the manufacturer's recommended dose is, use 1/4 to 1/3 strength. So this is Jack's 20-20-20. It's recommended 1 tablespoon per gallon, we will use 1/4 to 1/3 of a tablespoon per gallon of water, and every 7 to 14 days we will lightly apply the fertilizer to the seedlings, and that will get them through. Eventually, when they grow to be a few inches tall, I like to set up an oscillating fan that lightly passes by them and creates a little bit of wind, because that will thicken them up. Having to fight that breeze will make hardier, stouter seedlings. And as they grow, make sure to raise the grow lights accordingly, but always keep them within 2 inches of the tops of your seedlings. Eventually, after about 8 weeks, you'll have seedlings like you'll see this kale right here. These are 8-week-old kale seedlings. This is a 7 or 8-week-old tomato seedling. Now, hear me clearly. It is very important that you don't rush your mature seedlings out into your garden. They have to be acclimated. Grow lights do not contain real sunlight. They are a narrow band of visible spectrum. So if you just bring them outside, the real sunlight with all its UV and microwave radiation is going to fry your seedlings. It will outright kill them. You have to slowly acclimate them to true sun. So when they are ready to go outside, 1 to 2 weeks beforehand, you are going to bring them out at sunrise, leave them out for an hour or two, bring them back indoors under the grow lights. Then right before sunset, bring them back out for the last 2 hours of sunlight. Then you're going to slowly expand that to 3 hours in the morning, 3 hours in the afternoon. Then 4 hours in the morning, 4 hours in the afternoon, avoiding the strong sun in the middle of the day. Another great thing to do is to bring them outside when it is raining or when it's a totally overcast day, and acclimate them to overcast conditions because the sun is a lot weaker. After about 1 to 2 weeks of doing this, slowly introducing them to more strong sunlight, they will eventually be hardened off and you can leave them out all day long. But I caution you, please do not rush this process. Do it over 10 to 14 days, very gradually. Please, I don't want you to lose your seedlings. And that right there is everything you need to know about starting your own transplants from seed. Believe me when I tell you, this gets really easy after you do it a couple of times. And over time, this is going to save you a ton of money, and the world will be your oyster with a giant diversity of plants that you can grow. If you only buy seedlings from nurseries, you're limited to what they grow. But when you're willing to deal with seed exchanges, you can buy anything on earth. And this is the real way that you get a really awesome garden. So everybody, I sure hope you found this video helpful. If you did, please make sure to hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and please ring the notification bell so you're notified when I release more videos like these. If you're curious about any of the products I featured in this video, I placed direct links to all of my seed starting supplies down in the video description. And to see everything I use in real life in my garden, expand the video description, click on the Amazon storefront link, you'll see everything I use in real life. If you have any questions about this process, please ask them down in the comments below. Thank you all so much for watching, and I hope to see all of you again on the next video. And finally, we get to check Dale's stocking. Is there anything in here? Oh, what do we have? Oh, we have milk bone, and inside the milk bone, a lump of coal.
No.
Oh, even the best boys are a little bit naughty sometimes.
Oh,
Now,
no,
Dale,
actually,
Dale,
this was also in his stocking.
Dale, sit. All right, now, Dale, I want you to sit on this and keep it warm for about 100,000 years. This is going to be a great investment one day. It's going to turn into a diamond, buddy. Let's check Mommy's stocking, too. Oh, Mommy always gets a big old lump of coal, too.
Yep.
Oh, and as for
Well
Dad...
deserved this year.
And as for Dad, nothing. He's perfect.